remember me?
Wide awake.
You remember me? She made me famous. She made me famous. All right, sweetie, relax.
Back with Jenny Hutt and the Behavior Bureau. Sydney Leathers, another individual who made Anthony Weiner famous, joins us for her primetime exclusive. Cindy is famous for being one of the sexting partner, and she's willing to take some calls from you guys. She's been very kind. The number is 855-373-7395. So, Cindy, thank you for joining us. And I think I want to start with this. People have, I want to give A, the panel a chance to ask you a question, and B, callers a chance to ask you a question. But before I do, how did you get into his life? I think people have lots of misunderstanding about that. How did he find you or you find him, and how did this thing unfold?
What actually happened is I sent him a message in 2011 on Facebook just expressing disappointment in his conduct, and then a little less than a year later he poked me back on Facebook, and then the conversation started from there.
When did it get sexual?
Almost immediately.
Did you feel any remorse? You knew he was married. You'd already expressed discontent at his behavior previously. Didn't you, think something was not right?
I mean, yeah, the situation seemed strange from the beginning.
But you actually, if I don't want to put words in your mouth, but is it true that you actually developed, a relationship in your mind?
Sort of. I mean, it was more of a fantasy thing, I think.
All right, Crystal, you have a question for Sydney.
Yeah, Sydney, when this first happened, you acted really shocked, like, oh my gosh, how would Anthony Weiner do this to me? You acted like you were such an innocent, but we know now because didn't you write tips, 10 tips for women if they want to lure a politician? You said that you've had sugar daddies in the past that have paid you for all these things. I just want to know, do you have any self-esteem for yourself, or do you just depend on men to take care of you and give you sexual pleasure? Is that how you define yourself? Because it's really odd.
But I don't think there was a question, Crystal.
No, it wasn't a question.
Well,
it was just a personal
it
attack.
was a question. No, it wasn't. I asked her. I'm going to repeat the question. Do you depend on men to define yourself and to give you self-esteem?
Okay, fair enough. To buttress your self-esteem.
No, Crystal, I don't.
Okay. I've got a caller, Dina in New Jersey. Dina, what do you want to ask?
Dr. Drew, I'd like to ask Sydney, is she proud of herself, fooling around with a married man, 1, and 2? What is her motive? Does she have a book deal? What is her motive?
So go ahead, Sydney.
Am I proud of myself? Yeah, I do think coming forward and telling the truth is the right thing to do. Yes, I acknowledge the fact that he was married, and that part of it is a mistake on my end. I've never tried to play the victim as far as that goes. I own up to that. And, there's no master plan for this, although people seem to think that there is.
Sydney, I tell you what's not coming across to me is remorse at having done this. And I don't want to make you feel bad if you don't, but I would think you would feel terrible to have gotten in the middle of a family like this.
I mean, I do feel very badly for Huma, but you also have to understand the fact that this man has engaged in this behavior before. He's admitted that I wasn't the only one at that time. So if it wasn't me, it would be someone else.
Wendy, I wonder if you have a question for Sydney.
Yes, I certainly do. So I'm trying to get this clear in my head. Originally, you contacted him on Facebook telling him that you were not happy with his behavior, and then he pokes you back almost 2 years later, right?
About a little less than a year later.
Okay, and then you engage in the behavior with him, so now you don't think it's so bad as long as it's with you?
No, I think it's bad either way.
Or were you just playing with him? Was this kind of a fun game for you? Like, oh my, is he really going to do this again? Could I actually see if he could do this? Was that kind of what was happening?
I think towards the end a little bit, just because it was so shocking that after the first scandal, he was willing to go into that all over again. And the photos he sent me, he wanted to send me. I never asked for them.
And Jenny, I do have a question, but and it went pretty fast into some pretty heavy places where these exchanges with Jenny were like 5 times a day. Go ahead, Jenny.
Yes, so this is what I want to know. First of all, I think there's a bit of caveat emptor here, like the buyer beware. You did know he was married, and you did know that there was a prior scandal, so any sort of kind of shocked behavior makes no sense. How you thought that, how could it possibly happen again? I mean, duh. I don't think that this is what I think, Sydney. I think it's really, he was the one who really breached a duty to his wife. So I'll say to you, you're the mistress, so I get that. However, You did know this was like a big deal, and you walked into it knowing it was a big deal. And so the motive question that came up before, I'm going to throw right at you. Why'd you do it? Like, why'd you go public? Why are you on every show? Why? Why?
Well, she's not. I'm going to defend her a little bit here. She's not. She agreed to do us. She's not on every show, and she's been very kind to come here with us. But
yes, she's lovely. But why?
But motivation, Sydney. Is there a way of understanding that?
Okay, first of all, I haven't even done maybe a third of the interviews that have been thrown my way. So to say that I've been on every show is completely untrue. And as far as motives go, I released the information because he's running for mayor of New York City and lying and saying that his only misconduct was in 2011. Let me finish. He says his only misconduct was in 2011. That is not true, and we all know that now. I leaked the information anonymously in the beginning. I didn't sell the photos that he sent me or our transcripts. So if I was really looking for attention or notoriety, that's the route I would have went.
Again,
well,
hang on, everybody. I need to give Sam a chance. I need
Yes.
Sam a chance. And you don't know about Sydney. She's sort of a political junkie, and so she's very involved in these kinds of things, and that's one of the reasons she got sucked into this. Sam, your question.
Okay, it's hard to come up with a question after literally Jenny said what was in my mind, and Wendy and Crystal, but okay, my question to you is, did you change your strategy? Because I've been listening to some other interviews that you had given where you, in the beginning, it was more of like an experiment, but did you come out because maybe you thought that it wasn't a future involved? Maybe you were scorned? Is that also something that could have happened?
And let me refine this. I'll tell you what, Sam.
I'm confused,
yeah,
Dr. Drew.
I am too, but it's Cindy. I know what she's asking. And Cindy, I'm going to take a break. I'm going to wear more with you after this, but I want you to answer the question, which is, did you feel like you were in love with this guy, and when it didn't work out, is this now a lover scorn that you're doing? Are you settling a score? Hold that thought. We'll talk about it after the break. Back with Jenny Hutt and the Behavior Bureau, including our exclusive guest, Sydney Leather. She is known, of course, for having a sexting relationship with Anthony Weiner. She has just completed a photo shoot for Vivid Entertainment, and she was going to answer Sam's question that was asked before the break. And Sydney, I think it's an interesting question because I remember when you did your Stern interview, a few callers asked the same question. The men particularly thought, oh, I know this. This is a scorned lover who's now trying to take out her retribution on this guy who she thought she had a relationship with, but it didn't work out. What do you say to that?
That's not actually the case at all, because although we did express that we had feelings for each other, I think both of us knew that the majority of what was going on was fantasy. So it would be delusional of me to ever say, oh, I thought I'd have a relationship with him, or I thought I'd be with him. I never thought that.
I'm going to get a call from somebody in Nevada. Her name is Kelly. Kelly, you have a question for Sydney?
Yes, I want to know if celebrities releasing sex tapes inspired her in any way, like if this was her way of jump-starting a career for herself.
Sydney?
No, that was not a way of jump-starting a career for myself at all.
But Sydney, people then see you doing the Vivid shoot and stuff, and they go, see, she's taking advantage of this now. What do you say to people that say that?
Yeah.
Well, my whole response to that is the fact that, I released everything anonymously. I didn't want my face out there for this. My identity got leaked without my consent. So at that point, I had no choice but to own it, come forward, be who I am, hold my head up high, and basically not care what a group of random women who don't know me think.
Okay, and before these women... hang on, ladies. Whoa. Crystal, hold on. Before you guys continue your attack, I wanted to just ask Sydney, when was the last time you had contact?
It's a discussion.
It is an attack.
Well, it feels
I
uncomfortable.
want to say something nice.
Hold on. Okay, good. Wendy will be next, but I want to know when the last time she had contact.
On something.
Good. We'll get both your guys' comment in a second. When was your last contact, Sydney, with Mr. Weiner?
Mr. Weiner contacted me April 12th. That was the last time I heard from him, and that was of this year.
Okay, Wendy.
Okay, what I want to say is I totally understand you, and I probably would have done the same thing in my 20s. This would have been so much fun.
Wow.
Listen, you're not married, you're childless, you're enjoying your sexual freedom. This guy who's already, high profile and scandalous online.
Oh, come on, Wendy.
I would totally have gone for it. I would have had so much fun.
I don't, wait a
hang
minute.
on.
Wait a minute.
Well, Crystal, you're next, but I will let you say something. But as usual on this show, we learn things about our panelists. But go ahead, Crystal.
Well, Wendy, first of all, Sydney, I agree with you. You didn't have you weren't married, okay? Weiner is a pig. He was married. He had a pregnant wife. He went after you. I agree with you on that. And Wendy, I don't think it's fair for you to attack Sydney. Oh, she's 20. You know, it's always like we're blasting the single women when it's the married men who break their vows.
She's free.
And
she
wait
can
a
do
minute.
what she wants.
And I think with Sydney, what I have a problem with, Sydney, with you is first you say, oh, you want to be anonymous. You leaked all this for the good of the people of New York City. I'm glad you did it, frankly. But I have a question for you. Do you think I think you issued 10 tips to women on how to get a man like a politician. Do you think that that's a great example? If you had a daughter, is that
Crystal,
a lesson you want to teach her?
I'm against the clock. Sydney, go ahead and answer that. And then we got to say.
That's so easy for me to answer.
Go ahead.
The article is actually meant to be sarcastic and funny. It's not seriously like this is how you get a politician. It's a silly thing. So it's not a serious thing.
I took it as tongue-in-cheek, too.
Yeah, it was just meant to be silly. So that's all. And what was the other part of the question? I'm sorry.
I got to go, Sydney.
No, I think you answered it.
Yeah, I think you got it, Sydney. Sydney, thank you. Panel, thank you. We're back after this.